So, welcome, Taylor, to the Pursuit of Peace podcast. I'm very excited to have you in this space.
No, it's a pleasure. I feel weird being on this side.
I know. I
It's
feel
a bit
like
unnatural for me.
it's like driving a car, but you're like driving your parents' car because this is your space, really.
I'm doing
but,
that
you know. So,
on
welcome
this
to the
side.
Pursuit of Peace podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little intro to yourself. So, you, Taylor, are the host of the Waffle Shop podcast. You have superpowers in waffling, which I'm excited to journey through. And the British podcast website says Taylor is the host of the Waffle Shop podcast, the lead producer at 22 Productions. From starting in your bedroom, you took your podcast and started Coventry's first purpose-built podcast studio. And you are that passionate that you take podcasts to a next level.
Yeah, I try to.
How does it feel to have me say those things?
It's surreal. I think when even before we hit the record button, I get very because I don't quite understand it. It was like, but then this is where the passion comes in because I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. But yeah, I love them. I absolutely love them. But it's still weird.
Well, I'm very honoured to be in the presence of royalty, podcast royalty. So thank you so much for being hosted by myself. But I feel like an amateur compared to yourself. But I'm honoured to be in your presence. So awesome. So hey, I've just said a little intro about yourself. One thing I've got to know about you is you're an honest man, and you're a man that values things that are humanity things.
Yes.
I'd describe them. So how would you describe yourself if I didn't have all this nice glitz and glammy words? How would you describe yourself?
I think the biggest thing with me is probably, which I guess it's kind of like a bit of a superpower and a curse at the same time, is I'm like really empathetic. Like I can really put myself in someone else's shoes. And I think it's one of those words that I didn't quite know what it meant until going through like what I went through and like being on this journey. But yeah, it's been a huge kind of, I don't know what the word is, I guess, like a bit of a shock to the system to understand or put a label on why I'm able to do what I do. But I think that's probably the biggest thing that I describe myself with. And quite funny. But I feel like people who say that they're funny, but then they're not funny. I feel like you're setting yourself up to fail.
It's like you're going out there, guys, come to my comedy show. And they're like, okay, I'm judging you now. Like, how funny are you really? I'm one of those guys where like, if someone says they're funny, I'll sit there like really critiquing, like, are you that good to make me laugh? And
No, it's the same when someone says like, if you meet someone, they're like, I know someone that you'll really get on with. And I'm like, I really wish you hadn't said that, because then if I don't get on with them, then it's either I've got an awful taste in character or you've got an awful
it's almost like you're getting set up for a date, but you're like, did I really choose to like, I don't know, swipe for
yeah, exactly.
Like it's funny. And so with your amazing podcast, there's even been some amazing guests you've had on.
Yes.
So no lie, I went onto my YouTube yesterday, and as I went onto YouTube, Tiny Desk, Sean Paul comes up.
Yes. Okay.
So tell us about the Sean Paul episode a little bit. Your podcast.
I used to be absolutely petrified of asking questions and just kind of like getting out of my comfort zone. And I was in a stage with the podcast and I thought, you know what? I've grew up with that man's music pretty much as far as I can remember. He's got very strong connections to Coventry. His nan has lived here for quite a considerable amount of time. And I thought, you know what? If you don't ask, you don't get. So I reached out to him, like incredible team that he has. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And then a year later, my sister was actually moving to Milan. And I think it was a few nights before she was due to fly. He was playing in Birmingham. Okay. And literally, because I've stayed in contact with the team, they were like, you two are on the guest list. Like, come down to the show, have a good time. So incredible guy.
And you say incredible, so I know he's incredible with like the music.
Yes.
Like the instrumental can make your tail feather like move, you know?
Yeah.
But
very familiar.
how else would you say he was an incredible guy from that connection?
So I connected with him on a kind of deeper level when he mentioned that he's a big swimmer. So before he went into music, he was actually training to be like an Olympic swimmer. Whereas quite a lot of my ideas, or when I go for like headspace, is in the pool, because I'm not kind of focusing on anything else around me. All I'm focusing on is obviously not drowning. Yeah. And like, it was that kind of thing. And he was just the kind of the conversations that I have not just with Sean, like obviously with a lot of other people, that it doesn't matter if you've got like Grammys, you've got millions of pounds, like we're all feeling these very human emotions. So you look at someone like him and he's got all this confidence, but he's still feeling those anxious feelings before he gets out on stage. He still worries about his family. He still has all those really human elements. And I think until you sit down and have a conversation with someone, you can almost forget that type of thing. But yeah, he's a genius, that man.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? Where you see people in bright lights, you see them on socials, but actually they're just a human being behind it all.
We're all feeling it.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So, hey, we're going to do a little warm-up before we get into the main questions about the pursuit of peace. I found that sometimes with peace, before we talk about it, can sometimes be a decision that you make, okay? So this is the warm-up. The warm-up little activity is bucket, bin, or bargain. Okay? So bucket, I love basketball. Okay, we're linking this podcast. It's linked to Guardian Borders as well. So bucket. So if you score a bucket,
you're not going to ask me to.
I'm just going to bring a bucket out to do that. a little basketball hoop right now. So if a decision is bucket, it means you're a winner. You've netted it. Okay, it's a good thing. If it's bin, you're like, throw it in the bin, get rid of it, never. Okay, bargain is only if it's cheap.
Okay,
I'd do it. I'd want it. Those sort of things. Okay, you ready?
My
So we're gonna go kind of rapid fire. You can give me a little reason behind each one.
Okay.
So bucket, if it's a winner, always. Bin, you're gonna throw it in the bin. You don't want to be involved with it. Bargain if it's cheap.
Okay.
Got it?
Okay.
Okay. So first one, holiday. Maldives beach holiday.
Bucket.
Why?
I just think anything. I've got a really strong connection with like water and like the beach and stuff like that. So any form of holiday, like that's what I'm going for. I don't understand how people go on city breaks.
Okay, nice. So what if I said to you, Dubai, high rise?
I'm going to bin it.
Okay, I just wanted to test the system there,
it.
you know? Okay, next one, food. Old school, best of British, but Indian takeaway.
Bucket.
Bucket.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a swish.
Bucket.
Why is it a swish? Why?
Again, I think it's because I don't know where it's because I go on holiday, but I could quite easily live off like traditional like rice and like chicken and sauce.
And what's your curry what's your go-to curry if you choose one?
Quite basic, but I'll go for a chicken tikka, but it has to be red. I don't like it if you get a takeaway and it's like that orange colour.
Orange, it has to be red.
That like traditional
red
colour.
The real tomatoes are in there. Okay.
Yes.
Next one. Drink. I just put it out there. Just a really random one. Mountain Dew.
Bin it. Yeah.
Bin it.
Bin.
Why? What's wrong with Mountain Dew?
It feels like I shouldn't be drinking it.
It's like toxic waste in a fizzy, sweet.
Anything that is that colour, I do not think should be put in your body.
I once read something that the amount of caffeine and sugar can literally do a lot of damage to your body that comes in them. And I think it's something like if you go to the US, they double or triple it up compared to the UK. But it's not legal here.
No. To be fair, I'm saying that, but like I limit myself to like 3 cans of 4 Fat Coke a week. That's my little treat.
Yeah.
Anything else is just like absolute no-go.
Nice. Right, next one, I'm going to go a bit faster now. Clothing. Turtleneck jumper.
Bin that.
Bin it. Not even a bargain. Not even as a cheap one.
The first thing that popped into my head was that picture of The Rock with his gold chain.
The Hawaiian classic.
And I'm too fair, I'm saying now, I don't have the neck for a turtleneck.
You don't have enough space in the neck for the turtle.
Exactly.
Okay, next one. Tesla car.
Bargain.
Bargain.
I'd go if it was bargain, then yeah, you would. But other than that, I don't have a lot of interest in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're not a big electric car guy, or fancy car.
I mean, love the planet, obviously.
Okay, random one, health one. Acupuncture.
Do you know what? I'm going to say bargain.
Okay.
I've never tried it. Would like to try it. But only if it was on offer.
Yeah. 2 for 1, or your friend, someone wants to bless you with a nice voucher.
Yeah. So if anyone's listening.
Last 2 then. Experience. Fancy 10-course meal experience. You know where they bring out all these little plates.
Oh, the taste of something. Oh yeah, no, I'm bucketing that.
But okay.
And doggy bagging that.
Even if it's expensive, you're still gonna go.
Yeah, do you know? Because I think it's the experience. You're paying for the experience.
Investing in. Okay, and last one, I'm gonna let you choose a gig ticket because I know you're like into music.
Yeah.
So give me one which would maybe be a a bucket, one which might be need to be a bin, and one which might be a bargain to finish this
Oh,
off.
okay. Okay.
You could say talk about genres or type of experience, but I know you love music that much. We're gonna try
Yeah.
and try and nail you down to a very quick bucket. If you were to get a bucket, what gig?
At the moment,
Okay.
Bucket would be Glastonbury because I think the lineup this year is
Wicked.
just a little bit of me.
Mm.
Was unfortunately I didn't get tickets this year. From what I'm listening to at the moment, I would probably bin this kind of like quite lazy rap music at the moment.
Lazy rap.
Lazy
What do you mean
rap.
by that? Like
Just like I just
slow,
don't
or
feel
just
like people are
not
trying
vibing?
hard enough
Okay,
anymore
yeah,
compared to
fine.
what they used to. And then Bargain, I think some of these like day festivals, like some of them have got really good lineups, but they're just too expensive.
Okay, so someone is the little side ticket, then you go in for it.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, hey, let's get into it. Okay, with people know you, I've got to know you. I feel like I need to go to the Indian takeaway around the corner and
Yeah.
find a
Only
nice
if it's
red
red.
curry.
Only
Only
if it's red.
But hey, Pursuit of Peace podcast.
Yes.
Here's a question for you. What does peace mean to Taylor? What does peace mean to you?
I really struggled with this, because I don't think until recently I really understood what like peace was, and it was actually came from a journal entry. I was asking myself this exact question when I knew I was coming on here. Going back through the past like few years, I would actively disrupt my own peace, almost to like thrive in chaos. So when I actually really kind of sat down, and I think it was, I kind of settled on understanding and understanding myself or listening to myself. That's what I find quite peaceful. So yeah, it probably took me about 4 or 5 days worth of journal entries to get to that.
To try and work out what
Yeah,
peace
what it
meant to
actually
you.
means, because you think it's all these kind of like big grand gestures, but I think it's something as simple as sitting down with yourself and listening to yourself.
You talked about there about how you created chaos. What do you
Yes.
mean by that? Like creating chaos?
So it was like, it's the concept of being bored. Like people have such an issue with this idea of boredom. There's almost like a stigma attached to it. Whereas when you're as high functioning as we both are, you kind of sometimes ignore those downtimes, or you don't appreciate the downtimes as much because you feel like you have to fill that time with something. But yeah, it's, my life seems to be like a series, either they're not unfortunate events anymore, they're just events, because I don't like that label. But for some reason I seem to thrive when there's a lot going on. But then it's also not sustainable to live like that. So in those peaceful moments, now I really throw myself into them.
That's interesting. I had that idea of like a kayaker. Like it's so easy to go downstream when the water's flowing so
Yeah.
fast, right? Like you say, there's loads of events. But if you're forever paddling that fast, it gets really tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, and it's I was thinking about is when you just said about the almost the silence, how silence can be people can be scared of silence. It can seem almost deadly sometimes. I think when you've got a big schedule, you're like, wow, being silent can be scary.
Yeah.
Also sometimes. I don't know if you ever found that or
It's to be fair, I'm a huge music fan, so it's quite rare that things are silent. But I also find it quite peaceful. There are days when I feel like I just need nothing at the moment. And I think with the generation that we're in at the moment, everyone is kind of, it's almost like a badge of honor to be burnt out or to be busy all the time. And for someone who has felt utter exhaustion and been at that rock bottom, I take every bit of peace I can now and I run with it as long as I get, because I know I need it. It's what my body needs, it's what my mind needs, and it's also what the people around me need. So I can't be showing up if I don't allow myself those moments of peace.
Well, it's super powerful. I appreciate you saying, because you said like you talked about how you've been at a rock bottom, so it's kind of like the past tense.
Yes.
Like, what does peace look like at rock bottom? Did you feel you were at a place of peace, or as you reflect on that journey, what happened at rock bottom, or yeah, how would you describe your journey around those spaces?
So it's oddly quite peaceful at rock bottom. And I'm saying this from personal experience, but it kind of got to a stage with me where I almost questioned whether I wanted to carry on at all. And I'm not saying that from a point of view as if I wanted to die or anything like that. It was more a case of I didn't want to continue living my life the way it was being lived. And it was almost like I found like an odd sense of almost like like they say, like the center of a storm is like the most calmest place.
Yeah, there's so much around you.
Yeah.
You actually somehow.
When I hit rock bottom, it was like that. It was like I was watching everything else like go on around me, and I was just in this odd sense of I've actually got a lot more control here than what I think I have, and I can do something about this. So as much as it sounds really bad to be at rock bottom, it's actually probably one of the best places you can be, because one, you've got a lot of power in your hand, and two, you decide where you go from there, and there's no other way from rock bottom than up. So yeah, it was it was a huge turning point when that kind of realization hit.
Oh, that's really powerful. I was literally yesterday flicking, I think I was online on Facebook or something, and I saw someone post, the things where people post and they say like, post this thing because a friend needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Share it to like 8 other friends you care for or something like that.
Yeah.
And the first line I was reading was, it was saying, I'd rather hear from you at 4:44 a.m. than speak to you next at your funeral.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many people when they're going to hit rock bottom, and actually, like you say, they're in the middle of that storm, but actually that can be a peaceful space because they realize the first time I'm going to reach out.
Yeah.
Or they have that reflective moment. And yeah, it's really empowering, I guess, isn't it? When you said you reach out and you go, actually, my life is worth more than this.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like it at the time. And I'm in a very good place compared to what I was 4 years ago. But yeah, it is tough. Like, and it's going to take everything out of you. But like you deserve to be doing life with a smile on your face. And, it doesn't have to be grand gestures, or it doesn't even have to be like these traumatic events that some of us unfortunately have to experience. You can break that cycle, like once you're in a position to. He can completely change your life for the better.
No, that's amazing. And so you have this amazing story and you host a podcast.
Yes.
Okay. So you bump into other podcast hosts, other people in the creative sphere. You've had Sean Paul, Ed Sheeran. You've encountered lots of cool people, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw you with a selfie with James Corden the other day as well. So how do you think peace looks like in yours? So what is your sphere? And then how would you say peace looks like in the spaces?
It's a bit of a weird one, because even though podcasts have been around for quite a long time, it's still a fairly new industry. But I think there's something, I don't know if it's peace that I'd call it, but like almost just, there's a lot of freedom that comes with podcasts. You're not being told what to say. You're not being told like how to do things. That this incredibly beautiful format of just 2-3 people sitting down having a conversation. I was a part of some research actually the first thing this morning, before we came in here today, and the guy was talking to me and he was just like, I have so many people on here and they're so uncomfortable, they're really nervous, and like, they're in front of a mic, but this has been my safe space for 4 years. So as soon as those microphones are on, this is what peace is for me, because I feel like it's a safe space. It's there's no judgment. I can talk to someone, I can make a connection. Like some of my best friends now I've met through this format. So I think everyone in podcasts, there's something about being behind a microphone that is incredibly peaceful. It's when the microphones are off and you've got to do everything else, the editing and all that kind of stuff. That's when the peace gets disrupted. But yeah, there's something incredibly beautiful about being able to sit down and have a conversation with someone with something that you're passionate about or your experience, because that's how you learn. It's how you grow, by having these kind of conversations. So, and I think a lot of people would agree with that.
I think it's powerful when I think about singers. You have some amazing musicians where when they're behind the instrument or behind the mic or singing, and then they just seem free.
Yeah.
But then they step off there, and then they've got on social media loads of people saying all these things, but then they're almost waiting for that next time to stand behind the mic where it's just them. in their space where they can thrive really. I
Yeah.
think it's a powerful finding your space and then finding your freedom in that space, I guess, is powerful.
It is because it's taught me. It's taught me how to be a man. It's taught me who Taylor is. It's been able to connect with people like I wouldn't. I'd like used to watch on TV. I've paid to go and see them at like their shows. So to now kind of just be in a space where I'm almost like a part of that, and all I've done is sit down and talk to people behind a microphone. It's bizarre. It is so bizarre, but to be now sat in a product of that, like helping others like do the same thing, it doesn't feel like it's a job.
Yeah.
But I'm so lucky, so lucky.
Yeah, and so you say about being lucky, and I've heard you talk a lot about how you love your job. So if I was to ask you, I run an organization, I do chaplaincy, I do charitable work, I do different things. I have different hats that I put on at different points, and I equally say I love my job because I feel like I'm fulfilling purpose. I'm trying to help other people pursue peace, but I find, and it's worth it. So it is worth doing this thing, but you find there's a wrestle that happens as you do those things to make it worth it. So I guess when you talked about how you love what you do, how is the wrestle worth it? Or how do you journey the wrestle in the thing that is worth it?
Yeah. It's brilliant question, by the way. Brilliant question. The biggest thing that I have to wrestle with is the fact that, one, this was born out of a very painful experience for me. So there's a lot of heart in what I do, which I think sets aside myself and 22 Productions, because we weren't just jumping on the bandwagon with podcasts. Like, there's a lot of heart in this. But as well as the biggest thing I wrestle with is it was my hobby. It was my outlet. Whereas then very fortunate that the hobby and the outlet then became the job. So I've now in this weird space where I'm wrestling with, do I love it or is this my job? But I love it. I just need to find a new outlet. I need to find a new like thing to help me take away from it, because it was actually it came from, I went on like a little bit of a hike recently, and I just realized like from like 9 to 5 was podcasts, from like 5 till like 8, 9 o'clock was podcasts. Like whether if I'm not making them, I'm listening to them. Like if I'm not producing them,
Either way, your clock is forever seeing podcasts.
Yeah, I'm researching or like I'm listening, and so yeah, that's the biggest wrestle at the moment.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, because I'm thinking of photographers came to my mind.
Yes.
So you've got the person who they'll go, I'm going to take some photos in this scenery or these people. And then they get to that place where someone pays them for the first job. And then they have not just one job, but 10 jobs.
Yeah.
But then they're still working 9 to 5 and doing that job. And there's kind of that wrestle between how do you transition? Do you transition? Does it remain a hobby? Does it become a job? Is it a part-time job? And yeah, I've been there also. So where you
I'm in good company.
You need to put bread on the table to stay alive and to do life. But you're gifted and you're good at something. And I know you're a humble man, but you must be good at what you do. And then you go to this place, like there's this currency of money in this world.
Yeah.
And, in other cultures, like in Africa, it would be the currency of cows or something like that. There's a currency that you need to work with to stay alive. But you have this passion. And then you got a job, to get that money, and it's like that sort of.
And no one prepares you for it either. I mean, you can have conversations with it, but no one actually prepares you for that moment of when it turns into when you are adding like a monetary value to it. I found it very difficult to put a monetary value on my time and the stuff that I love doing. And even now, like I'm a year into this now, like with it being the proper full-time job, I still struggle with it, because I would do it all for free, but unfortunately, bills are expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Nice, yeah. It's something. Guardian Borders is classed as a social enterprise, a charitable entity, but I'm a social entrepreneur, and so you're trying to do business stuff to bring a societal impact, positive societal impact. So you're like, this stuff I would have volunteered doing, but actually I need to stay alive. So, no, I think a lot of people get it, and I loved how you shared about your heart, right? And like this was born out of your heart, and you talked about different challenges and whatever. And I've heard a little bit about your story, and one of the powerful things in your story, and I guess for a lot of people when they're trying to pursue peace, I think all of us, well, we'll find out as we go through different guests, but most people want to arrive at a place of peace. But we're on a road, right? There's a journey. And I guess for you, is there any like personal bumps in the road or personal tragedies or challenges that have really helped shape you? And it's a road, right? So you're journeying, but there's things that happen along the way. Is there anything that's been significant for you in the pursuit of peace for you or for people you love or know?
It's weird because my like bump in the road led me to peace. So a number of years ago, I nearly lost my mum to an operation that went horrifically wrong. She's now in a neurological care home over in Leamington, going through like rehab. And basically her quality of life has completely changed to what she obviously was before. But in that process of that happening, I had to almost grow up overnight. I had to take on the family home. I had to essentially care for my younger sister, try and keep my job going at the time.
So this change literally happened
overnight.
Like you woke up one morning, then by the time you woke up the next morning, it was
literally she got her to hospital, and I left the hospital around 1-2 o'clock in the morning, and the doctor said like because it was actually a spinal fluid was leaking, and it collected at the bottom of her spine, became infected, and she was just a little bit all over the place, as any infection would do to someone. So we got her to hospital, and they were like, we're just going to drain the fluid, we'll keep an eye on her. So I left the hospital around 2 o'clock in the morning because my sister was starting her GCSEs the following day.
She's literally 15, 16.
Yeah, so it's like great time for it to be happening. So got home, got my sister up, sent her off to her first exam, and then I got a phone call to say, you need to come to the hospital. We need to make a decision in regards to your mum's brain. Wow. And I was like, no, it's her back. And they were like, it's her brain, you need to get there. Wow. So then when I arrived at the hospital, they were saying things to me like brain damage, like life support, all these things. I was just like, what on earth is happening here? Wow. But what had happened was where she was lying down, the spinal fluid travelled up her spine, essentially blocked the brain of oxygen. Yeah, wow. And then, it was there was like 3 months in intensive care after that. And it got to a stage where they sat me down and said, we're going to be turning the life support machine off. There's nothing more we can do. And because it was in the middle of my sister's exams, I practically begged them to say, like, can we just keep it on? Just so my sister had, I think it was an additional 3 days, just so she could get through those days without having this to deal with.
Would you say like the life support machine was like hope for your sister at that point?
Yeah. And I didn't tell my sister at the time. I was just like, just focus on your exams kind of thing. I can deal with everything else. And I had to give them the date and time of my sister's last exam, and then they were switching it off. The time eventually came, and then she started breathing by herself. So it's it's surreal. It's very, very surreal looking back at how the whole series event kind of planned out. But what followed that was just kind of just an utter horror story, to be honest. It was just very hit and miss constantly. I was sat down almost like 3-4 times like a month to be told your mum isn't going to make it. Like, I must have planned her funeral probably close to 17, 18 times in total. Wow. And so that was probably the obstacle, but the impact it had then on my mental health was just, it completely destroyed me.
And how did you find yourself mentally, emotionally navigating during that time? Or do you feel like you kind of pressed pause and then came back to a different point? Or
I got very good at separating the fact with the emotion, because I was going into these kind of very serious conversations with like doctors and surgeons. I almost had to listen, I had to soak up that information, but if my emotion was taken over, I wasn't listening. So I got very good at switching to, okay, emotions off, I'm in like fact mode, like I'm listening to everything that they say. But then that mode took over, so I didn't express a lot of emotion. And I still to this day don't know what happened that day, but I was sat down and told, like, there's nothing more that we can do. Like, if she pulls through this, she pulls through it. And I remember walking down the corridor in Warwick Hospital, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I cannot, I've got nothing more left to give anyone.
Nothing, not much left as
No,
well.
there's nothing. And then that was the moment where like I sat down with my sister and my best friend, and they were like, you need help now. You can't carry this anymore. This isn't yours to carry. And then it was from that point, life started to get better.
So so the people around you really kind of lifted you up.
100%. I genuinely dread to think where I'd be if it wasn't for my little sister. Dread to think where I'd be.
It's amazing. It's an amazing testimony and story. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
I just think about the power of that journey, and I'm sure people will be tuning into the podcast, and people are inspired right now.
Thank you.
I know for me, where people stand, I just think, for me, look what God did. I know some people, they have different perspectives on different things, but your mum has a testimony.
There's something.
You have a testimony. You know?
I'd learn everything I did from that woman, like everything that I have. And that's what I mean. Like it was such an obstacle. And don't get me wrong, there's still days now where it is a real tough time to kind of like navigate through. But she has just taught me, she's given me this kind of gift of just this resilience, just to be like, well, you can throw what you want at me, but like, I know I'm going to be okay. And if my mom can kind of go through what she did and still kind of wake up with a smile on her face, like it's you've got to keep going. You can't give up.
So if someone's going through a tough time, what sort of things would you say to them? Because sometimes your tough times can be through a circumstance, right?
Yes.
Someone's going through a tough time in their job or their studies, their education, their housing situation, various things. Even in big societal wars, in Palestine and different things that happen now. But sometimes they can be connected to a person.
Yeah.
Like one person. What sort of things would you say to inspire people around pursuing peace in those circumstances?
I think the biggest thing I would say in that respect is, one, you don't have to do it on your own. There is always people there to lean on, to speak to. You may not feel it at the time, but there's so many incredible people out there.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. You're not alone. But one of the biggest things that my mom, the podcast, like even days like today, can teach me is that I can do absolutely anything. The only thing I can't do is give up.
Wow. That's powerful. When sometimes you just got to put one foot in front of the other.
That's all it takes. We're so focused on the destination. It's like it's always like the destination. It's always the end goal, whereas you can't focus on that. Like the fun part is the journey, those little moments. Like sometimes all you've got it in you in that day is just to put one foot in front of the other. But then on those days, that is actually the biggest and best thing that you could do. So it's celebrating those little wins and just, the journey over the destination any day.
And you just know one foot goes in front of the other and you've achieved something.
Exactly.
You've made it. You've made it for that day. And I think even the question I asked you about the bump in the road, it was a bump in the road. It wasn't a dead end. It was a bump in the road, which you've continued to journey since, and it's inspiring. Thank you for sharing your story. And I want to meet everyone after the story. But so one thing we want to do in the podcast is have a little self-care piece at different points. So the thing I'd love to do today is what they call 4-second or square breathing. Okay, so often in Guardian Borders with adults or young people, we'd have like a square on the screen, and it'd be like, breathe this side of the square, hold for this side of the square, breathe out for this side of the square, hold for this side of the square. And it's just a breathing practice. There's some amazing songs that I have, which they're literally just called Breathe.
Yeah.
And there's been so many times in my life where sometimes things are going so fast and I'm like, okay, let me breathe. Sometimes it's physical breathing. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, mental breath. Sometimes spiritual. Like sometimes what does it look like to breathe? It's by taking time to pray.
I thought you were making another Sean Paul reference.
Yeah, breathe. Blue you know what? That was Blue I'll be honest, I was tiny desk on the YouTube. I was referring to that. But I'd love for us to take a little few seconds to breathe. So Perfect. What I was thinking we'll do is You are welcome to close your eyes if you want to. I will speak through how we're going to do it. So, for example, I'll say breathe in. I'll say 2, 3, 4, which is the count for breathing in. We'll hold, breathe out, and breathe in again. And we'll go a couple of cycles.
No,
Okay, so
I'm
those
up for
which
it.
are with
I'm up
us
for it.
can roll with us and love themselves a little bit today and take some time to breathe. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Cool. So let's go. We're going to do the breathing square, 4 seconds. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Final time. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And continue breathing more normally. How do you find it?
I look anything like that. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just a little bit of a breather. Such a powerful technique.
It's only about 1 minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I find sometimes, even with breathing, sometimes to focus on your breathing is great because you forget. Okay, let me say that again. To focus on your breathing is amazing because you forget everything else that you need to do. Something that you normally do like automatic, when you focus on it, it helps you clear your mind as well, but also it's good for your body, right?
Yeah. So swimming.
Yeah.
It's always why I love it, because you're not focused on anything else other than your breath and not drowning.
And not drowning. What's your stroke then? What's your go-to stroke?
Breaststroke. Yeah, I can't quite. I'm not quite. I'm a very confident swimmer, but I just can't. Okay, I can't do any of the others.
And it's something super powerful about even water, like just like flowing over your body, and even the sounds you hear. And
that's a very peaceful place to be as well.
That's a sweet time.
There was a. I was very fortunate to go to Bali. It was a year after everything happened with my mom. And when someone asked me like what your happy place is I went to a water park and there was a lazy river, and I must have literally sat on that lazy river for about 2.5 hours.
This like as in going round
Just
and
going
round,
round.
or
just literally just bobbing around, and there was a guy like a lifeguard, and every time I went past me, we would just give that little nod. I'm like, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm at peace. Leave me to it.
That could have been a nice thing to just check one time. Just don't give him a nod. See if he comes in for a dive. You just have a lifeguard giving you a hug.
Exactly.
That's fun.
Next time.
There's something I'd never thought of. For you, if you to give me like 2 or 3 places you've been in your life that are places of peace, what would those places be?
Koh Samui in Thailand. Okay. Just a beautiful place, beautiful people, beautiful food. And it's just picturesque. It's just, there's something about being near the beach, watching the sunset, like those oranges in the sky. That's probably up there with one of the, I don't even know the word that I'll describe it. It's beautiful.
I just looked up them. I was trying to see orange in the sky, but I just saw
metal container. Not quite the same. Yeah. Still a little bit peaceful. A little bit peaceful. Sure. But yeah, Koh Samui in Thailand.
Give me one other place. A place of peace.
My mum's house.
Sweet.
Yeah. It's not obviously the traditional place you would probably want to see your parent, but there's something about going to my mum's that I can just almost be like a kid again. I feel like when I'm with my mum, like I feel very well protected. I feel very at peace. Like I can handle anything once I've been to see my mum. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful because I was thinking of myself, reflecting on the question I asked you, and there's a couple of places, but 2 that came to my head. One was when I moved, a time when I moved into a new house, and I kind of said, this is going to be my sanctuary. It was in a busy season of my life before this recent years. And I went, this is going to be my place of sanctuary. And I think the spaces of peace are really important, and also to protect your peace, to go, I'm going to try at all costs to try and not allow things that are going to be chaotic or to disrupt my peace to come into this space, and kind of almost, I would say, mark the walls. Like, this is a peace place. This is a peace place. This is a peace place. You know, and not come back.
You're a decorator as well.
Yeah. Decorator, singer, back in Sean Paul's listening, back in dance. And
we
also,
did make a song together.
You
Made me, yeah.
you made your song?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I made a song with him.
Okay. Wow.
So no one will ever hear it.
But you're not going to go a cappella right now?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, we could find a backup
Yeah.
track maybe.
I mean, to be fair, I'll play it to you afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you've got to take those chances. And I literally had like a limited amount of time. And I was like, do you mind doing this? And he was like, yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Sorry, I completely just
No,
go
no,
over.
it's powerful. And I was thinking, like, church is a great place of peace for me.
Yes.
I'm in a place where I feel like I belong, to sing, to pray, to have friends in that space, to not feel judged and those sort of things is a sweet place of peace for me. So yeah, very grateful for it. So little something about peace before we start to come into land. Little quote I found, Albert Einstein, one of your favorite heroes of all time, I'm sure.
Yes, of course. Posters on my wall.
He said, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. I'll say it again. Albert Einstein. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. What does that something of peace mean to you, that little quote from good old Albert?
That you need to understand what peace means to you. Because your version of peace isn't going to be the same as my version of peace. It's the same as perfection. Like, if we're all chasing something that doesn't really exist, peace does exist, but I think it's in there. I don't think it's a material thing with peace, but you have to understand what it means to you. I'm going to piggyback on the back of Einstein, just for like a little bit of advice. Again, it came into my journaling session when I knew kind of like the format of the show. Don't fear peace. Embrace it. Because I think for a huge period of my life, I feared stability. I feared having a safety net. I feared peace.
Wow.
But yeah, you've embrace it. Don't be scared of peace.
Wow. Yeah. And I love that piece where he talks about understanding. It's not force, it's understanding. I was thinking about what you talked about earlier. You start to understand yourself more. And I was also thinking about like even societal and like global issues where there's a lack of peace.
Yes.
Of like wars. Because I want this land and you want that land. And sometimes you think about these people that are leading these massive wars. Actually, if they understood each other better, maybe those wars would never have happened.
The fact that we're still in this position where this is happening, I don't quite get. I mean, I'm not political. I don't understand it, so I'm not going to pass comment on it. It shouldn't be happening full stop. But if anything, these past 4 years since starting the podcast has taught me is, one, the power of a conversation, the power of sitting down, even having difficult conversations. Everything can be solved with a conversation.
That's powerful. I think I'm in different spaces and I do stuff from dealing with people, leading an organization, to chaplaincy, talking with people through their life journeys. And I find that often you get to a place where like kind of we're rubbing against each other in the wrong way. There's so much power that comes from, hey, I'm feeling this way, you're feeling that way. How should we journey this? You know?
Yep.
But it can feel really awkward, right? When you get to a place and you're like, oh, this feels awkward. Like, who's going to start the conversation, me or them? But actually, when you pass through it, but often if it goes well, you just exhale and go, that felt good, right?
Yep. It's the same as like the text message, isn't it? Like, we've kind of formed like a whole new meaning to like these little words on our phone now. So you can read it in like 30 different ways. But sometimes when you're like, oh, did you mean it that way? They're like, no. And it's just kind of like the communication. We need to communicate better.
Yeah, beyond emojis.
Yes. Yes.
Although emojis can be helpful beyond a text.
They kind of heighten the emotion.
Yeah, they can see something going on here. But so Taylor, you're an amazing podcast host. I can tell you're an honest guy. You're a man of humanity. You've got an amazing story and testimony. If someone was listening and tuning into this, what is a story you'd want to leave with them, or a word of inspiration, or just anything you want to express, or a note for the record that you'd want to give to someone as they kind of get a bit more of a flavor of your life and your life journey?
Don't be afraid to start. Like, just if you've got an idea, a passion, just go for it. You'd rather regret something that you have done than what you haven't. And it's got me this far. And yeah, you just, if it works, it's amazing. If it doesn't work, you've learned something. Just don't be afraid to start.
It's going to be people launching startups all across. Company's house now is going to explode with startups.
Sorry about that.
And the entrepreneurs are alight with a flame right now.
And if you do want to start a podcast, I know a guy.
I know an organization, 22 Productions, come for you.
Shameless plug there.
Nice. That's really powerful. Hey, I'm a founder. So I remember when I started Guardian Ballers, I remember going, I have this vision, I have this dream. I really believe it was like a God dream. And I remember that moment where I was teaching. I was like, I've got this vision. I need to step out. I remember stepping out and going, okay, we're going to get the wheels in motion. It goes from notes on your phone to notes on the laptop to sharing with the first person and sharing with the second and then the fifth and the 10th. And all of a sudden it's in motion, if it's meant to be. So
it will never pass you by.
Yeah.
If it's meant to be, it will never pass you by.
That's powerful. And so as we come into land, final question. You've talked about it in lots of different ways, but what is the pursuit of peace for you?
The pursuit of peace for me is just to continue on the path that I'm on. I can't quite articulate this in like a powerful way, but I know I'm on the right path. I know what I'm doing at the moment is the right thing. Like, my gut is telling me that this is what was supposed to be happening. This is where I'm supposed to be going. Like, I've got good people around me, and I think I'm in hot pursuit, I think, of peace at the moment, is what I'll say. It feels good. I feel, if everything feels really nice at the moment, which I think I'm going to lean into that.
Awesome. So. Well, it's been awesome having you on the Pursuit of Peace podcast. Thank you so much for inspiring me, and I'm sure many other people.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been an honor. I feel like honored to be in podcast royalty.
I know, we're in competition now. Great.
Yeah. And thanks for being part of the Pursuit of Peace podcast community with us.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Be good to journey with you more soon.